I'm not angry. I'm just done. 6 words that spun my life 180 degrees and left me in a state of relief, absolute turmoil, and to be frank, complete panic and overwhelm. So where to begin? Married nearly 30 years, more than half my life with one person. And suddenly, with one sentence, my life had changed. The practicality of it was brutal and hit hard, which I'll go into. But mostly, it felt a bit like being a boy bobbing about in the ocean without an anchor. The emotions surged through me like a wave peaking. I'd feel my heart race, my breath torn away as I tried to ride it out. The absolute cacophony of emotions. The grief of losing everything that was normal to me. The guilt of disrupting my beautiful family. Oh, the guilt. The confusion, the panic, the relief, and all of this was before my first cup of coffee. As I stepped into this new circle of circumstance, I realized I wasn't alone. Suddenly, like when you learn a new word, you start seeing that word everywhere. I began to notice so many women on their own journeys, each story so different, but with threads in common. Divorce, widowhood, loneliness in a marriage, loneliness, empty nests, health changes, stage changes. We can all in our own way identify with this midlife wobble. We don't talk enough about it. That's ironic, right? Because women, we are said to just talk too much. But maybe, just maybe, we just surface talk. This space, this podcast is about going deeper. Because behind every perfect post and everything's fine smile, there is a story. A feeling of invisibility, uncertainty, or just absolutely terrified of what's going to happen next. I wanted to change that, even if it's for one person, to make her feel seen, heard, and like somebody out there truly gives a damn. Now, I'm certainly not a therapist, nor am I a coach. I'm just someone who's fallen flat on her face more times than I can count. And I've somehow managed to stand up and to laugh through all the snot and the tears. Not very pretty. They say laughter's the best medicine. That's what I found to be true. And sometimes it's the messy kind, the kind that comes between tears and mascara smudges. This podcast is about holding space for women to drop the mask, breathe out and embrace their truth. I want Beautifully Unfinished to be that place where you can exhale and even shout and say, okay, it's not just me. We'll get into the mud. It's not for the faint-hearted, and definitely messy. We'll talk about confidence, not just when it's cracked, but when it's had a full-blown demolition party. We'll talk about changing bodies, mine included, and not to mention the late-night searches for that miracle makeover, the mood swings that are so wild I could audition for a soap opera, or perhaps call my lawyer before the homicide department calls me first. And energy, oh my goodness, that deserves an episode all on its own. Those midday power naps I once thought were for pensioners are now my guilty pleasure if I get a chance. If not, I'm chasing my second wind just to make it to bedtime. I dream of sleeping through the night after a simple cup of tea like we did in our 20s. But instead I line up magnesium, calcium, ashwagandha, CBD, and even a patch for stem cell growth. You name it, I've tried it. And somehow I'm still exhausted. A few years ago, I hadn't even heard of half these things. Now I've got powders, potions, and pills for everything, except apparently where I left my phone, my keys, and my energy. And speaking of powders, protein powder, who would have thought that would end up on my shopping list? I used to think that was just for bodybuilders, those gym types with the veins popping out their necks. Now I find myself contemplating in the supplement aisle, comparing whey versus plant-based, and feeling quite proud of my newfound knowledge. And for the record, I am rather partial to vanilla. Who would have thought? Don't get me wrong. I'm all for self-care. But at this stage, I feel like I'm running my own in-house pharmacy. There seems to be something for everything, except of course my missing energy and my memory. Well, being single again, back on the shelf, feels a bit like a cattle market, where the remaining bulls are, shall we say, a little bit concerning. It has been terrifying and brutal at times. There was comfort in being uncomfortably comfortable in my old normal. However, there is liberation in this. It's a bit like drawing a line in the sand. I get a chance to start over, start my next chapter. Coming up, I'll share stories about the beautiful, the brutal, and the magical. How losing my identity as a wife, the end of my marriage, the heartbreak and the grief of losing children, and the magic of love and life, and how they've all shaped me into the woman that I'm becoming. We'll talk about the quiet, resounding power of friendship, and how loneliness can sometimes be the invitation, the quiet nudge of courage it takes to rediscover who we are. The funny thing about courage, it tends to show up because we're not. Starting this podcast has not been a small feat. The symphony of naysayers in my head have nearly won. But the rebellious side of me, the one that ignores the do not walk on the grass sign, has decided otherwise. So I've stripped down to my bra and my knickers, and I'm about to launch myself into this ocean. It's all its messy, magnificent glory. Maybe you're listening right now and you too are standing in your ocean moment and not too sure what happens next. That's okay. Me too. Because I know there are women out there feeling broken, exhausted, invisible. And I hope that through this space you'll feel seen and heard and reminded that you're not alone. There's a saying I love, alone we survive, together we grow. And I hope that me too becomes something you find yourself saying often here. Because if we can survive heartbreak and menopause, honestly, we can conquer the world. To start, whilst I'm trying to figure all this out, it'll be just me sharing stories, lessons, and a few of my very many blunders. And with time, I'll invite voices of women who've walked through the same fires and found their way forward. I'm not a professional, nor am I a household name. Not yet anyway. I'm just a woman who wants to make a difference and truly believes that there is beauty in absolutely everybody. Sometimes we just need someone to remind us of that. So if you've ever asked yourself, where did she go? This is for you. If you've ever laughed, cried, or let's be honest, occasionally wet yourself, this is for you. If you've ever lost, been overwhelmed or alone or lonely, this is for you. You already belong here, so buckle up, buttercup, we're in for a ride. Grab a cuppa, and if you're listening in the car, keep your eyes on the road. And let's figure this out together. Through one tear, quite a few laughs, and a few very questionable decisions in between. Thank you for spending the time with me today. It would mean the world to me if you enjoyed this episode. Please like, follow, and subscribe, and share it with someone who might need a little reminder that they're not alone in this world. So until next week, breathe, laugh, and keep showing up exactly as you are, beautifully unfinished. See you next week.